Hello and welcome to the BMC Quick Course series. My name is Todd Mollenhauer and I will show you how to use the Connection Manager in BMC Workbench for Db2. The Connection Manager in Workbench enables you to organize connections to your Db2 subsystems by defining local or remote subsystems. In this session, I will describe how to add, delete, and update your Db2 connections. I will also describe how to maintain a list of favorite connections. To access the Connection Manager, click Tools, then Manage Connections. When working in Connection Manager, you will have different capabilities depending on whether you are a super user, usually a DBA, or a non-super user. If you are a super user, you can add public connections and manage other users' connections. If you are not a super user, you can only manage your own connections. Please refer to the BMC Workbench for Db2 User Guide for instructions on how to define a super user. At the top of the screen, you can see the user that we are logged in as, not a super user. During initialization, BMC Workbench discovers all Db2 subsystems on the sysplex where the UIM server is installed. When you initially open the Connection Manager, a table of these discovered subsystems is displayed. The first time you use Workbench for Db2, none of the connections are selected as favorites. From this window, you can add local and remote connections, delete non-discovered connections, edit an existing connection, refresh the list, and add or remove a connection from favorites. Let's add a new connection. Click the plus sign. Enter a user-friendly name and select a subsystem from the drop-down list. If the subsystem has remote systems defined to it, you can click the Remote Subsystem box and select the remote system from the drop-down list. Click OK. You can see the newly added connection. You can click on any of the column headings to sort on that column. Notice the Owner column identifies who added the connection. Here's an example of adding a local connection. Notice the Remote Subsystem box is not checked. You can work with multiple connections at once. I want to designate the highlighted connections as favorites. To do this, I will click the Add Favorite button. The icons in the left column designate the type of connection. Here we see Db2 connections that I created at the bottom and Db2 connections discovered by a Connection Manager. These cannot be modified. A yellow star to the left designates these connections as favorites. You can select multiple non-adjacent connections to work with. I'm going to remove these from my favorites by clicking the Remove Favorite button. And you can see the star has been grayed out for the ones that I removed from my favorites. To edit the details of a connection, highlight the connection and click the Edit Db2 Connection button. The information for the connection is displayed. You can change any field. When you are finished making changes, click OK. You will see the changes reflected in the list. Hover over the name to see the details in the pop-up. To delete a connection, select the connection and click the red minus sign. Note that if any workspaces are using this connection, you will not be allowed to delete it. A confirmation box will appear before removing the connection. As you can see, the deleted connection is no longer in the list. You can click the Refresh button to refresh the list and display any new connections that may have been added. When you are finished with your changes, click OK. There are several places in Workbench for Db2 that require you to use connections. For example, in the DB2 Navigator perspective, when you add a view, you must select the connection you want to use from the drop-down list. You can change which connections are available in the drop-down by clicking the icon to the right of the Connections drop-down. You will also be prompted for a connection when you add a DB2 statement cache view, as shown here. Other places in Workbench that require you to use a connection are when defining an SQL tuning session, when defining a comparison involving a DB2 catalog, when defining a recovery progress report, and when defining an object set view and other product tools views. The buttons on these displays function the same way as the Connection Manager display. You can refresh the list and add or remove favorites. If you are a super user, when you add a connection, you can make the connection public. This will allow any user to access this connection. If you want to make the connection public, click the public box. The super user can also see all connections. Thanks for listening. This has been the BMC Workbench for DB2 Connection Manager Overview.